Hey, call me Louis. This is my spot. LuiSpot.
On February 2025, President Donald Trump signed an executive order suspending all US aid to South Africa, citing concerns over the country's land expropriation laws, which the US administration alleges discriminates against Afrikaners. The ACDP believes this decision was based on misinformation and misunderstanding, as the Expropriation Act 13 of 2024 does not explicitly single out anybody, particularly Afrikaners. Its implementation, however, has raised concerns due to historical land ownership.
I wish to start my 3 minutes with a speech from a man who would one day become a minister in this country. And I open the quote by saying, "We want the land. Without the land, we are not free. Ask the Palestinians." Close quote. Thank you, Honorable Minister Gayton McKenzie. I cannot believe that this country has allowed a convicted sexual predator, a pathological liar, a man with no morals, to speak to us in this way. But then again, Trump feels comfortable speaking to South Africa in this way because you people couldn't even deliver the budget on time. It is disgrace that we are even having this debate, because this is South Africa. This is not a colony of the of America. We do not need America's money. Just manage what we have better. As a matter of fact, because of your mismanagement of the fiscus, you think nothing about putting VAT up by 2%, killing our poor. Trump pays for the bombs that kills Palestinian children. You think he cares about South African children dying of HIV? The man does not. South Africa can do better. South Africans deserve better. The land expropriation we speak about offends Trump to the point that he withdraws aid. Are we tenants in this country? Does he pay us so that Steenhuisen can live on my land? I think not. Land must be expropriated. Let Trump keep his money. Let this waste of 9 months called the GNU give us our land back. We will show you how we profit from it while living on it. We do not need Trump.
Point of order.
Oh, there's a point.
Yes.
Mr. America himself.
No. Let me hear the honourable member. Please proceed, honourable member.
The honourable member has cast aspersions on me, House Chairperson, by saying that I'm living on his land.
Order. Order, honourable members. Order.
I would, if that is...
Order, honourable members.
You
Order.
are, Pastor John, you are.
Now, take your seat, honourable Adams. Yes, the point of order, honourable Steenhuisen.
If that is the case, then he's not entitled to any land because I don't own any land.
No, honourable Steenhuisen. Honourable Steenhuisen. Let me just remind members that we should firstly refer to each other in honourable terms. Right? Let's do that. Refer to each other in honourable terms. We can't just call a person by his name or surname. Right? Please proceed. The rest of it is a question for further political debate.
Before invading the nations, the US always fabricates human rights violation to justify intervention. Today, same tactics are being used against South Africa. The growing calls by right-wing groups for foreign funding to establish independent states and to be armed by foreign interest must be recognized as part of a broader plan. This is the early stage of economic isolation, leading ultimately to military intervention. Next, AGOA will be terminated, escalating tensions between USA and South Africa. Our government must dismiss opportunistic African racist groups exploiting US imperialism to fund their racist fantasies of an independent state. That will never happen. We will expropriate land without compensation, whether they like it or not. If they object, they can seek refuge in America. Deputy Speaker, Trump and the USA are not demonstrating strength. The USA is merely displaying an advanced stage of capitalism, which is imperialism. Trump engages in transactional and manipulative relationships with the world like it is his backyard. The hostility towards South Africa does not come from fraudulent boers spreading disinformation, but from America's imperialist agenda. The USA, home of the world's most sophisticated intelligence agencies, agencies that fabricate evidence to justify the invasion of Afghanistan and Iraq, and orchestrated the assassination of Muammar Gaddafi, Patrice Lumumba, Martin Luther King Jr., and Malcolm X, cannot now claim to be victims of disinformation from a minor racist group based in Orania. The USA has openly embraced the golden age of imperialism, extending its power through threats and the prevention and termination of foreign aid. In response, our government foolishly seeks to explain our policies to a maniacal president, as if the USA were a victim of misinformation. The USA knows exactly what it's doing and why it is doing it. At a Golden Sachs event of the 27th of February 2025, South Africa President Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa stated, I quote, "Trump got the wrong end of the stick of the country's land policies. I completely reject this notion. The USA, home of Elon Musk's platform, X platform, Jeff Bezos, Amazon, Facebook, Google, Tesla, Starlink, and Silicon Valley, the global hub of data collection, cannot claim to be misinformed."
The United States administration's recent decision to suspend aid to South Africa, citing our sovereign stance on land reform and our legal challenge taking Israel to the ICJ where they were found guilty of genocide, is not just an economic decision. It is an act of political and economic coercion that threatens the lives and livelihoods of millions of South Africans and people around the world. Let us be clear, this is economic warfare and unethical medical blackmail, an attempt to strong-arm us into submission because we dare to stand for justice, for land reform, and for restoring the dignity of the oppressed. This is not about aid, it is about power, control by a minority of racist landowners and beneficiaries of colonialism and apartheid over our land and resources, and whether South Africa has the right to determine its own future without external influence.
The West, as we have known it until now, is over. The US is isolating itself from its traditional friends, so we must look at alliances of mutual interest a little differently than we have before. Together with many of our trading partners, we face the same threat. A group of fascists who run the US, for whom cruelty and domination is the point, not just a method. The actions announced by President Trump some weeks ago have been in the works for nearly 10 years. They were just waiting for the right government to come into office. They are driven by a sophisticated disinformation ecosystem. Digital analysis of the social media accounts that have sown this disinformation shows that over 70% of the discussion on so-called white genocide and land grabs has been by accounts in the US and Eastern Europe rather than in South Africa. It is not just AfriForum who are part of this network. There are paid political influencers here in South Africa who work with that network. Many are unknowingly followed on Twitter by members of this House. South Africa is light years behind what countries like Finland are doing to prevent the destruction of their national consensus by this kind of disinformation. It is a national security threat that I do not believe our security services are even remotely equipped to deal with. Otherwise, we would have legislation before this House to deal with it.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, we need to remind people that we are a sovereign country, and our sovereignty must mean complete independence. Any country that gives us aid must supplement our own initiatives as a country. We must never allow aid to be used to undermine our national interest. The halting of aid by the US is in response to us addressing historical injustices of land dispossession, which is widely recognized. Therefore, it is clear aid is not really about genuinely helping a country. It is about managing a country to govern itself in a manner that serves the imperialists. We should never allow our sovereignty and national interest to be undermined by those who give us aid. Those who give us aid want the status quo of inequality, poverty, landlessness, unemployment, and all the evils of apartheid to remain unchanged. We need to close ranks and unite and pursue total transformation of our country. We can't be dictated by other countries on how we must correct our domestic problems that emanate from the over 400 years of colonization and apartheid. We are in this position of aid being used to manage us because we don't own the land, the natural resources, and the economy of our country. We are still conquered even though we got democracy in 1994. What we must do now is to leverage our mineral resources instead of begging for validation and money from the US. Why are we even needing aid, yet we are rich in mineral resources? Why is the mineral wealth of our country not owned by the state on behalf of the people? Why is the wealth of our country owned by the Americans, the British, and the Europeans? Yet in the communities, when the minerals are mined, there is poverty and disease. We must be a generation that corrects this. The mineral wealth of the country must be owned by South Africans so that we never need aid from anyone. But make no mistake, this is just the beginning. Today it is aid. Tomorrow Trump will move against trade. We must be prepared because the US wants to keep South Africa and Africa in a position of economic submission where our prosperity is always tied to their approval. We cannot allow this. We must aggressively expand our trade relationships beyond the US market. The African continent presents immense opportunities. The BRICS alliance is open for business. Why should we continue to rely on those who see us as nothing than a pawn in their global chess games? Lastly, Chair, if the country was serious, AfriForum and Solidarity would have been long charged with treason.
Speaker, ultimately, this country needs to show that it has a conscience. Our stance on land expropriation is for our poor. Our stance on Israel is for the international community. Trump cannot write our speeches. I want to offer my apology to the president of the ATM. For the first time ever, I will disagree with you, Honorable Vuyo. We cannot charge AfriForum with treason. It is impossible to charge a joke with treason, and I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member.
South Africa should not have to hire people and use American funding to pay our healthcare workers. We must take the land back and must take the resources back and utilize it to free our people and get more people to help our people. Who will suffer the most? Not politicians, not corporations, but the poorest of the poor, the sick, the landless, the voiceless, the very people South Africa is trying to uplift through its land reform agenda. Let us speak truth to power. This crisis is not happening in isolation. It is the direct result of treasonous elements within our borders, like AfriForum and Solidarity, and people like Rob Hersov, who are all spoiled, rich Nepo babies and beneficiaries of apartheid and colonialism, who have actively lobbied successfully to harm their own country, leading to the loss of life of South African citizens. This will not be tolerated, and it cannot go unpunished. These organizations and individuals lie to the West, portraying land reform as white genocide to the US Congress, pushing a false narrative to justify America's economic aggression. This is an act of treason. But let's deal in facts, not propaganda. White South Africans own 72% of all private farmland, despite only being 7% of the population. 87% of the Johannesburg Stock Exchange is still controlled by the same corporate elites who thrived under apartheid and benefited from colonialism and land grabs without compensation to the indigenous people. More than 60% of South Africa's natural resources, mines, and industries remain under the control of the same colonial beneficiaries who now claim to be victims, and the rest are shared with political connected Nepo beneficiaries, not the average South African everyday people. And now these very racist Afrikaner and British descendants living amongst us as South Africans who have stolen our land, stolen our future, stolen our wealth, and put us in labor camps called townships and kept us there while they go around the world bad-mouthing us. They must be called to book. This is not just hypocrisy, it's a betrayal of the lived reality of all South Africans regardless of race. AfriForum and Solidarity represent a small, privileged, racist elite who are willing to see South Africans suffer and the country economy run into the ground just to maintain their grip on stolen land and economic power, and have maintained racial privileges by refusing to return land and under apartheid and under colonialism. Despite a peaceful transition from apartheid to democracy in 1994, which was meant to be the start of the land reform process, it was never ever done. Here in South Africa, we have yet to do land reform. These white racist apartheid people beneficiaries need to understand where we come from as South Africans.